All right, welcome in to ESPN Louisville Plus. Sorry, do a little half-assery real quick. I had to try to edit this thing on the fly because I don't have my normal setup that I have when I'm back home. But welcome in to a very special edition. I guess what I'm just kind of calling After Dark here on ESPN Louisville Plus. Joining me today, I got the A Squad. The A Squad's with me today. Mark Ennis, Jeff Lightsey Jr., and of course David Skull. How are you guys doing this evening? Yeah,
good, man.
Whiplash.
I'm good. There's I think light news day.
Whiplash. Yes, it's whiplash for
yeah.
everybody. I just don't think anyone really saw it playing out this way, and in particular, I'm put out that the guy I joked didn't exist got hired.
And he actually might be fun too. It makes it even worse. It's like,
yeah,
he might.
And they're gonna have a press conference for him when my show starts. So I take all of this very personally, and I guess it's just gonna be that way with me and Pat Kelsey. That's fine.
Is this the appropriate time for me to remind everybody that when we did this, when Kenny Payne was fired, that I brought him up as my dark horse candidate? I just want to bring that out there,
wasn't I?
Little pat on the back.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Just saying. I also followed it up. The person who reminded me of that also said, you followed it up with, we're not going to hire him. And I was like, well, we could just cut that part off. we can do a little magic editing. But yeah, no, it's obviously, like, and we'll get into all this, I'm sure, during this whole broadcast, but the process, less than ideal, obviously. Reservations, there's plenty. You know, every candidate pretty much had its flaws, but he is an intriguing person. There's a lot of things to like about him, and a lot of ways we can kind of explore how this might work, and obviously some concerns. The big one being his defense, honestly, at this point. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind couple of days. It's been a ringer for a lot of people, but at least there's some kind of finality here. At least we have somebody in place and we can start moving forward.
Can we all agree that the funniest possible way to frame this hiring of Pat Kelsey, other than Mark is an idiot, which is funny, but was Tim Sullivan framing it as Louisville could have hired a Hall of Fame coach, but instead opted for scandal-free Pat Kelsey. And the Hall of Fame coach he's referring to is Bob Huggins.
Bob Huggins.
He wrote that today?
But yeah, the man can write a headline, though, because I actually had to check it and be like, what's he talking about? Oh, it's just the Huggins thing.
I thought for way too long on that.
What a headline!
What?
Well, and I like just that headline exists. That headline exists as the conclusion, really, to silliness. This search was to the public, to us. Maybe we'll get more information about the whole story going forward here. But to us, it went from you think you have Dusty May done on Saturday night to they're starting over, and it could be a handful of guys. Shaheen Holloway, all of a sudden, there are other names, and then it's Richard Pitino, and there seemed to be a pretty coordinated push for people or by people to talk about Richard Pitino, and then it's Pat Kelsey, and it's done. All hovering around Bob Huggins coming on the show of a former player who was the chief advocate for the guy that just got fired, and like asking for basically saying, I would love the job. And then you hire Pat Kelsey that afternoon. And it just so happens that Pat Kelsey is something of a clone of a guy you just fired 2 years ago. Like, this couldn't be funnier. And you have to find the funny in it.
I mean, you have to, just to that point, because it's like, first of all, Huggins going on Jerry Eve's show. Like, did you really think that was going to get you the job, buddy? Like, did you really? Like, there's no way in hell you thought, like, let me go one last stitch effort, go talk to Jerry Eves and get the job done. Eves can get it done. He got it done so well.
Like, yeah, he worked so well the last time.
Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, and then the funny, I did tune into the Eves and Bob Huggins thing, and he was like, "Yeah, I've been sober for 300 days." It's like, I don't know why I thought that was funny. I just did. I just found the comedy in that. But come on, man, like,
Good for Bob. Seriously.
I don't want to. Like, I don't want to laugh at sobriety, but that was clearly like max. It's like when you talk about how old a baby is, right? Like, how long do you say months until you start saying years, right? Like,
Blake said like 37 months, or I can't remember what he said about his daughter, but I cut it, and I'm like, okay, Blake, come on, just say she's a year and a half, or say whatever, it's fine.
300
days.
Okay.
I was about to say, that's 3 years. 37 months.
You're right. I just said it. I just said thank you.
Because it's like, Blake, come on, bro. She's 3 now. Like, no way now.
I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was something ridiculous.
She's 858,000 minutes old.
That's right.
Sorry, I had to yell at a guy to turn his fucking car alarm off because we're trying to do serious radio here.
It wasn't your car alarm?
It was
It is pretty funny that, like, Bob, I mean, like, is Jerry Eves just an agent of chaos? Like, he's just like, let's have Bob Huggins on the show. People have been talking about him on Facebook. He's like, would you like the job? Well, yeah, I'd like the job. All right. Like, what is this? Like, why?
I did.
And he got 2 articles written about him in one day, Bob Huggins.
Crazy. It's crazy.
The national media response to this was all, and I mean all, like almost to a man or a woman. Every single person responded with like, I'd like to be 6 foot tall. I'd like to be, a size 2. Like, it was all like, yeah, well, I'd like something that's not going to happen too, Bob. That's great. Congratulations. Look, Bob is maybe the ultimate example that I can think of a guy who has an outward reputation in one way, and then his players are like, no, he's clearly the opposite of that. Gosh, he's just it's ridiculous to think that Louisville was going to hire him. And yes, is Jerry Eves an agent of chaos? He's about to be. I think you can go ahead and set yourself up. I'll throw it to you guys. How do you think the advocates for Kenny in particular, with any kind of a platform, will react towards Pat Kelsey? Like, are we going to get Rick Bozich and Jerry Eves and I don't know who else, out after everything he does? Like, how do you think he gets treated, or do you think that sort of remains to be seen?
Bozich, no. I don't think Bozich does too much because, but Jerry Eves, I could see criticizing each and every single thing that he does. Like if Kelsey goes on a 2 or 3 game losing streak, if Kelsey finishes the season, I don't know, 15-17 after year 1, like I could see, not to say that he will, but I could see Eves really, doubling down on that. Bozich, not so much. I'd like to say he's a professional. It just kind of lost some of his professionalism in the whole Kenny Payne saga, especially towards the end, because it's like, come on, man, like you can't gaslight us and make us feel like we're not seeing what we're actually seeing or not experiencing what we're actually experiencing. So that's with Bozich, I say no, but Eves I could definitely see, because I mean he told us that our program's been a wreck since 2009. Like, this is the same guy that told us that the program's been in shambles since 2009. So I could definitely see him jumping on top of Pat Kelsey if he has a mid type of first year.
Well, he can win 20 games and we'll probably hear from him.
Yeah. I love that you talk about professionalism as Biscuit's Lysoling his fucking screen off. It looks much better. It looks great, though. It looks great. This is real professional.
I mean,
we're doing here.
It does look way better, too, by the way. It looks way better.
Jeff is so focused and so professional that he can get those takes off while this was happening, in the middle.
All right, before we go any further, I just want to say, this is me. This is my preference. I am looking at the chat, and we are reading everything you guys are saying. but I hate with a passion like 15 minutes of greetings. So I'm not doing it. I'm not. Shout out to everyone who's here. Okay.
Yeah.
I love you.
Fact.
A lot of you I recognize, and we're going to try to economize and stay on task and not shout out everybody individually. But I just want you to know I see you guys. And if you have questions or things you want us to discuss, throw them in there, and we will try to pick them up and run with them because we've got time. And Louisville's got a new coach, and we get to talk about it now. So let's start here with I want you guys to be honest. Like this is what is Big Brother, like with no little immunity, like the closet or whatever, where we just get to sort of vent here. I want you to be totally honest about your first reaction to it's Pat Kelsey. I'll go first and just say I felt like an idiot because I just thought he was so remote as a possibility, especially as like Richard became a candidate. Stuff like that. It didn't feel like they were going to be able to turn around and be like, it's actually Pat Kelsey after all that. And so I felt kind of dumb. And it felt like, this just he doesn't feel like he's being coronated like I was hoping for the hire would feel like. And I will be completely honest too, that by the time we've gotten to this, I feel a lot better about him than I did earlier. Dave, I'll let you go and we'll just kind of go around.
Yes.
You go ahead. I'm. Somebody else can start on that one. Hold on.
I'll go because obviously
go for it, Justin. I got to hear what you got to say.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I feel like I get the rep for being the dude who fills his diaper online and is always pissed off and not happy about the situation. That's fine. I'll embrace it. I talked with Dave about this previously when we did the women's game and all that, and the way I kind of viewed this is I kind of feel like I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna hope this works out. But the way that I've taken this and the way that everything's transpired after 2 seasons of Kenny Payne, of putting that on the fan base, on me, on everybody, if you would have moved after 1 season of Kenny Payne, I would have more than embraced a coach like this, a hire like this. I would have been like, okay, that makes sense. Good move. Understand it financially, understand it. You're not going to get your top guy. After everything and the way that it's played out and the way that it's gone out, I'm not just trying to be yelling, scream, be angry about it, but like when this was the hire. I feel like I could have read a list of like 10, 11, 12 guys that I would have been a lot more excited about. A lot of this probably has to do with a lot of my lack of knowledge about Pat Kelsey, to be honest. And like, I'll go back and I'll watch him. And there's a lot of things that I just don't know if I feel confident that like, this is the guy you hire. This is where we go with it. And this is something that's going to make Louisville basketball be Louisville basketball again. Like, I kind of feel like this is kind of we're going to try to build it back. Hopefully this is the guy that'll do it. You know does that make sense? Like, I kind of feel like I don't know if I have the confidence that, yes, he's got a lot of energy. That's great. I've got a lot of energy on this. Doesn't mean I'm the best person at radio. I got a lot of energy here. That doesn't mean that I can be, the best talk sports guy. So that's the way I look at it. And I view it as he's got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of passion. He brings a lot of things that Kenny Payne was missing. And then I'm happy to see him bring that. But at the same time, I am very reserved in what I think that this guy can accomplish. And I know that I know very little about him. But after 2 years of misery and frustration, it's hard for me to, Biscuit says it because Biscuit's a reasonable person. And I know Marcus did. I know Jeff is as well. But like you'll say, basically something along the lines of like, well, I hope you give him a chance. We're going to give him a chance. I'm going to sit back. All you can do is see what happens. That's really hard for me to do after 3 years of misery. It's hard. It's hard. Like I just wanted a little bit of something to get me excited. Maybe after I hear you guys talk more about it, maybe after I do more research, watch more. I've watched, press conferences, stuff like that's fine. But I need something that I hope will get me invigorated as a fan and be like, I'm ready to be there day one. Let's go. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But what I want to do, I want to make sure we're fair to Pat Kelsey. Like, because he is very energetic. He is very charismatic. He's outgoing. But he can coach basketball. Like he is a basketball coach. Like all the energy and all the antics and stuff, that's cool and that's fun. But I don't want to limit the fact that he has a over 70% win percentage. That's not by accident. And he hasn't been a coach for 2-3 years. He's been a coach for over a decade. and he's got over a 70% win percentage. Like that's not by accident. That's not
Against
easy to
who?
do. That's not by accident. He's been to 4 NCAA tournaments, all as at small schools. And so like I don't want to just overlook that for saying, oh, he's this big rah-rah energy guy. Like, no. The man can coach basketball. Like that means something. And granted, it has been at lower levels. It has been at Winthrop, and it has been at College of Charleston. But last year, College of Charleston, when he was there, they won over 30 games, and he had over a 20-game winning streak. And this year, they followed that up with, 26, 27 wins and went back to the NCAA tournament. That's not easy to do. So I don't want to overlook that. I want to make sure we're putting in the proper context. Granted, it is at a lower level. Granted, it is with less talent. Granted, it is not this. But at the same time, this is a basketball coach and not just a cheerleader. Like this dude can coach basketball. So I want to put that out. Now, to that point, it didn't excite me either at first because, I mean, I didn't know Pat Kelsey. But when you do look at these things, a coach over a decade with that high of a win percentage, granted at a lower level, and these people that are in high regards, not telling you about the potential of a Pat Kelsey, using real life examples. Granted, it's at a lower level. Granted, it's at, Winthrop and College of Charleston. But they can say, hey, not what I think he can do. No, what I can show you examples of what he's been able to do. And that's why, I can get behind it. Granted, once again, I had guys, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 guys ahead of Pat Kelsey too. But then those lists continue to get chopped when you take out the buyouts, when you take out all the baggage. And when you come down to it, really, it looked like it was always a 3-man race. It was Dusty May. He told you no. It was Josh Schertz. He signed the MOU to St. Louis. And then that third guy was Pat Kelsey. The Richard Pitino, I think, was more about the people in the media than the actual people at U of L. Just from, talking to different people, it sounds like more of
rich people.
Yes. Yeah. Like people that are connected to the Patinos. It sounded like that was more of their thing than it was Josh Hurd's thing. And so, and that didn't do Hurd any favors. It did not do him any favors because the people who it was more their thing, they have big microphones and they have big platforms and they know a lot of people. And so that can get it hype for Richard, when in all actuality, it sounds like Josh always had his third guy, which is Pat Kelsey. So I can get behind it. And the more and more videos I see to go with his coaching record makes me excited.
I'll be honest, like I'm going through like the last couple seasons, like it's hard to just at a glance. It's hard to really gain much from there. And obviously, I guess it's, it depends on who you play. But I guess the best I've seen what they beat Virginia Tech last year, and like they played, I guess they had Alabama close at the end of there, but didn't they get blown out to begin with, and then they got to kind of close the gap in the NCAA tournament. I'm trying to recall. Let me know if you just don't know. That's fine. But I'm trying to see like from his field of work something that I can like really lean into. Be like, okay, this is why I'm excited. Outside of winning against other bad comp. I mean, we don't mean like.
But Justin, like the problem with that is like he is one of them. It's not like he's at Alabama.
He's here. It's the one like he was here playing those schools. Like he was there.
And I think look, we're looking at like a spectrum of things for a guy, and like I would say that, like my biggest red flag is not had tournament success, and that matters. And that's a place where Dusty May had a trump card on him significantly.
Yes.
But what I think he has almost equally, as much of one on Dusty May is he has a lot longer resume at 2 different places. And I think you can make a reasonable case that like Dusty's really successful seasons is really just one group of guys. And that between Winthrop and College of Charleston, he has shown it really doesn't matter who the players are. They're going to be really good relative to their competition. Justin, I think it's fair to say like it's not like they're like Gonzaga and going and beating a bunch of really great teams. They're not competent. They're not.
Yeah.
That's not there. And I think that's at least fair to point out. But I think we could do that with just about everybody's resume. I think it's more with him. I think you're doing more of the resume isn't great, but the traits are really, really good.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
There's a lot of like, I guess when I look at this, to me, It's just I think the reason that I'm so bothered, I guess, is the word I would use. The reason I'm bothered about this hire is it's very much a gamble. It's a massive gamble to me, and it's just like to me it is a do or die situation for this job, for this program.
A gamble on what though, Justin? Hold on. A gamble on what? A gamble that he is going to be any good, or a gamble that he can win you a championship? Like, what is the? Because I think there is a very high floor for Pat Kelsey.
Yeah.
Now, can he win you a championship? I don't know, but I think you're going to consistently get a 20-game winner, between 20 and 25 wins each and every single year. Now, the tournament is what I don't know, but what I kind of feel comfortable saying is, oh, he's going to come here and win a bunch of games, at least regular season games. I feel comfortable saying that. But when you say gamble, what do you mean?
I think kind of like, is Louisville basketball going to be just a middling program in the ACC? Like, is that what we're looking at? That's what I think about, like a gamble of like, I don't think he's just going to be, a failure. I don't think he's going to DePaul us, right? That's not going to happen. But like, are we just going to kind of like middle out, and that's just kind of what Louisville basketball is going to be? Is Louisville basketball going to be competing for ACC titles and trying to win, like, what we expect Louisville basketball to be, which it hasn't been, and I understand that it's not his fault. But is it just kind of like, is this a hire that just is going to keep Louisville basketball being kind of more of a middling program, and that's what we're looking at moving forward?
It's a valid concern because there's a lot of unknown, but there was a lot of unknown with every single candidate that was realistically available, right? Because that middle tier, those next guys up, the guys with the $8 million or eight-figure buyouts, weren't coming here. They weren't part of the scope of the search, and anybody with baggage wasn't part of the scope of the search. You can criticize that. That's actually to be stars. This is what Josh Hurd had to suss out with his job, with his search. And some people aren't going to be happy with the result right now. Top choice, but I think there's a lot of traits, like Jeff said a minute ago, that I think could fit in here. The worker, I think he's going to hit the ground running, when he gets here. Doesn't matter if he wins the press conference, but what he does in the next couple of months are going to be really telling, and I think that you're not going to have to teach him how to run a basketball program. He knows how to run a Division I program. He knows how to win at Division I level. Now, the question is, can he get the level of athlete and the level of recruit commensurate with the U of L job? And it sounds like he's a very good recruiter. He sounds like he's a good salesman. I'm not really concerned with that part of it. He actually got a decent recruiting class the last 2 years at Charleston. He had a decent level of talent, compared to his peer programs. What I'm most concerned about is how his defense is going to translate. It's not his strong point right now, and it's not really from what I could tell, it's not a strict interpretation of the pack line, kind of like Mac wasn't either. He seems like he's a little more aggressive, in his implementation, where we know how it was with Mac, where risk taking, and jumping out for turnovers and things like that is completely discouraged. I think it's a little bit more of an aggressive form of this, but it hasn't been effective. It's been in the hundreds, the last several years, and on average, and that's not championship level basketball, but that's something where it's like I've talked about before. You're looking for like the 3 or 4 tool player, in baseball, and you're trying to develop, the next, the 4th or 5th tool. And I think we've got at least a 3-tool coach here, and hopefully he's a fit and can translate. I'm excited to see what he does with this level of program. But it's obvious that I think what most people's reactions to the last several days in this search have been mostly about the process. Not saying that a lot of people had Kelsey in their top 5. They didn't, or top 3, because the familiarity wasn't there. But I think the process has made a lot of people skittish, and there is a fair amount of people, as I said earlier today, that weren't going to be happy with anything outside of that holy trinity, of like Billy Donovan, Jay Wright and Scott Drew. And I'm not saying you're one of those, Justin. I think that there was a lot of guys that you would have been happy with, but they weren't people that were in the scope of the search, right? Was there a person at this level, like amongst those being considered, that you're more comfortable with than Pat Kelsey? Or somebody else that you wanted to see us land on?
I don't know if there was like somebody that specifically was like, go get that guy, but I opened up to like Josh Schertz a little bit more.
Yeah.
like Phil has been like trolling me with him for a long time, but now at like this point, I'd opened up to him. Even Richard Pitino, like there's different reasons I understand like why not wanting him, but there are parts of me that were like, I've at least seen him, the only game he won in the tournament though was against Louisville, but still, like, and again, those are difficult situations. I think probably a lot of the feel good about him was a little bit more of the extracurriculars than they actually were about on the court coaching kind of thing. But no, at this level, that's kind of like. But again, that's kind of like my philosophy was, you can't, after 2 years of this, you can't make this level of a hire. That's why. But again, that's where we are, and this is what we're stuck with. And hopefully,
since you mentioned Josh Schertz, like, can we just revisit here for just a second that like there's a real chance that like one of our coworkers cost Josh Schertz the job. that because of what went on with that whole thing, that it didn't help. And there was a very real sense on, I think, on Monday that it was going to be his job.
He was the guy.
Really,
he was the guy.
Yeah, that he had kind of reemerged as the front runner, and then you had the whole, Bob relaying that story, and then having to apologize for it and kind of back off of it. Super awkward and probably hurt him. And I think in the end, that's the biggest issue with Pat Kelsey. Is it's not that and it's not much of an issue, but it's not that like his resume doesn't have things that commend him to us. They most certainly do. Like demonstrable basketball success, personality, all that stuff. Like it's there. Not perfect. Nobody was perfect, but there's no denying that like they went through a process and they did not pick him, and then they did not pick him again, and they might have been not picking him again before they did pick him. And I think everyone was at least just hoping for, like, we got our guy. And in some ways, though, at the same time, we were all asking for a search. And so Josh was kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And I will be fascinated to see how they present how they landed on Pat when we all kind of know how this played out.
It very much
just feels... for the record, like I think it's been clarified, like Bob didn't cost Josh a shot at the job or anything like that, but it didn't help the overall perception of this search. I think that's fair to say. Like it was just another cherry on top of a shit sundae. At that point, where it was just like, all right, the Richard Pitino stuff that I don't think was coming from Louisville at all. Like it sort of came out of left field on Sunday and was propped up by a lot of people. And there was a lot of people that wanted that, because we love to try to recapture the glory days. And trust me, I understand some of the allure of Richard Pitino. I think he's a really good coach, and we obviously know what the last name is. I also think that he's only being considered because of his last name, but there are a lot of positives that come with that last name, including extra money. I get why he was there, but at the end of the day, I don't think that he was considered a candidate, but it didn't help the narrative and the view of the search that there was another perceived front runner for the job, like at the last minute, that seemed to be coming from out of nowhere. And it's like, dude, where are you getting your information? Or is this a legitimate, or who's putting this out there? And I know the money wants him, but is he actually a candidate, or is it just what they want? You know what I mean? And it just further just obfuscated the whole thing and made it less clear in the last couple of days.
Well, and that's the hardest part, like as a fan, like watching this break down, was I feel like given what was kind of put out there with like, and again, Dina was saying, or whoever said it doesn't matter, but kind of giving the idea of like they're going all in on Scott Drew. And then there's this number 2 guy who's a secret guy who you're going to lock up. And yeah, I guess it was Dusty May at that time. But if that circumstance were this was Pat Kelsey and it was just hey, he wanted to go all in on this guy, but then Pat Kelsey was his reserve. That's his pick. That's who he's backing up all the way. I'd feel very different because I'd be like, that's the guy he landed on. That's the guy that he kind of knew. I'm gonna roll it with this one. But instead, it was like 3, 4, 5 down the line, and now you get Pat Kelsey, and it's like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Dude who looks like a guy I'd be seeing at Sully's 10 years ago is the guy like who looks kind of like the douchiest guy at Sully's. Like, I think about 10 years ago is like what I look at when I see him. Hopefully he brings that energy and he wins at the court in the same way. But that's just what I see. I see Dixie Highway Sully's, let's go. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need. I don't know.
It's so funny because I remember one of the times we did one of these and Mark said, we just can't go for the guy that's like the 100% opposite of Kenny Payne. And that's exactly what we're getting at Pat Kelsey. He is literally, it's not just by force. Like, hey, we have to
PK.
go. It's just how
He's PK.
It's just kind of how it. And even his initials are literally flipped of Kenny Payne. Like that's how.
Opposite,
but his energy, his momentum, the way like he's gonna come in. Like I mean, one Twitter, I think Lance. Shout out to Lance on Twitter, Lance Edwards. He said. It's funny how in the last few hours, I think it was around 6 o'clock. It's like in the last 3 hours, we found more practice video of Pat Kelsey than we did in the previous 2 years of Kenny Payne. And I just was like, yeah, that's just the type of energy and the type of stuff that this guy's going to bring. And to fans, to people here, like you said, we have 1,200 people right now watching us, and there's probably another 500 or so listening to Diener on Spaces or whatever. Like these people, like people are craving or carving for content in regards to Louisville men's basketball. This man's going to give you that. He's going to give you that, and I think he's going to bring you wins because nothing in his past tells me that he can't win. Now, granted, do you think he can win at the highest level, meaning winning, competing for number 1, top 4 seeds in the tournament, final Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, Final 4s? I don't know. I'm not sure if he can yet. I don't know. But what I do know, there's going to be a base level of winning that takes place because I think he's that good.
I just had a comment, by the way, that said, Mark, this is a good time to practice smiling. I'm sorry. This is just my face.
Somebody else accused me of being drunk, which I haven't had anything to drink, so I don't know if that says anything about me. What's up, Phil?
Hey, guys, how are you? I'm sorry, a little late. Looking good, though, man. We were trying to get something up here on the tube, but I like the setup. Ennis, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better, hopefully. Bubble Boy.
That's what I said. Yeah,
maybe not.
Justin, I do
looks like
and
he
I
is,
want everyone to know, Phil, I'm going to let you finish, but as a veteran now, Justin, I know you know what I'm about to say, I think. I recognize the don't you dare wake up that fucking baby voice. Like, I know it.
That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. I have the mic.
Hey, guys, how's everybody doing?
Literally, as I'm setting this... And literally, as I'm setting this up, my toddler was coming in and being like, I want to talk. But no, bro, you're not talking. We're talking about Pat Kelsey. This is serious stuff. We cannot talk about this, Luca. I was like, tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coordinating this while on vacation.
It's just how dedicated I am to ESPN Louisville Plus. We need to get this thing going. And I'm saying this week of all weeks would be killer for it. So I'm glad Mark kind of took the reins on that and said, let's do it tonight. So appreciate that. And
Phil, somebody congratulated you on graduating from the Bottom Boys. Apparently, it's just Mark and I today.
Equal opportunist, baby. All right, here, I want to throw this. I'll kick off another round here. Your biggest questions, maybe that you've got about him, and his success, what have you. I wrote down a couple, and each of you can just sort of throw out whatever yours are or answer mine. I don't care. What year does he think this is? That's one for me. Or does this count? Basically
Yep.
the same thing. I asked it on the show earlier, but has anyone confirmed that Schatzel doesn't translate to anything sus at all? Like, are we good? Right, we're not going to get.
It was like
out,
it's like Deer One or something like that.
Well, let's hope.
It's weird.
Let's hope that that's a good harbor. Does he have a Shaq tattoo?
It's weird. Her family was in Argentina for the last 70 years. I don't know what happened.
That's funny. That's really funny.
I think I'm glad Mark got that. Thank you.
Those are mine. Those are my big questions about him. What about you guys?
Who wants to go first?
I got to think about that.
What? Okay, I want to know his perception of the rivalry and how he's going to tackle recruiting when it comes to those games. Like, I just don't want to hear the same. You know what KP did, what he did the last time, making any kind of comment like that. I just don't want any lowering of the standard of the bar. That's what
I don't think you're ever going to hear that.
Right.
You're never going to hear that again. I mean, we talked about on the show today. I said, this is not necessarily questions, but I mean, all I really want to hear tomorrow is there's no excuses, basically. You know, like I don't want to hear anybody tell us what's wrong with the program. You know, like you just you recognize what's great about the program, come in and win right away. You know, just hit the ground running. I'm not talking about you have to make a Sweet 16 or a Final Four or whatever right away, but just come in with the expectation of winning. You know, like come in competing for recruits, come in building a roster to win right away. You know, and instead of making excuses, you know, reach for those bars that we talked about them getting adjusted down for the last 2 years. And no, I don't think you're ever going to hear him talk in awe when it comes to Kentucky, or at least not the way that Kenny Payne did. He's not going to talk about how he can't compete with those pros or how he wants to beat them by one. I mean, I think that was an anomaly with a coach who just didn't quite understand the assignment.
Yep. Yeah. I just don't want I think it's just I just want to know your expectations the same as my expectation, and I don't want you going in and bending the knee to anybody. Like you are.
Yes.
You got this job. Congratulations, Pat Kelsey. You are the head coach of Louisville basketball. Like that is, to me, that should be one of the pedestals that you could reach. And I imagine the way that he looks and from what I've seen in his press conferences, that's how he's going to operate with this. Is like, I have this immense opportunity, and I'm going to go swing it around a little bit.
No, see Louisville basketball as the same way we do. Like, I mean, for the reasons that some people are disappointed you landed on Pat Kelsey is because you look at your program a certain kind of way. I hope that you see that this program is at that same prestige. Not that you got to, hide people from knowing who you're recruiting, or not that you want to beat your rival by 1 point, or not that this is a 3 to 4 year rebuild. Like, no, I don't want to hear any of that. Come in, look at this as one of the premier spots in college basketball. Look at this as an opportunity to go out there and compete against some of the best teams in the country, whether it's non-conference or your conference schedule, and 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Like, this is the conference you're walking into. This is a place that people want to be, what we thought people want to be anyway. And so this is a place that you can come in and have grand success at the highest level, and that's all I want to hear tomorrow.
Well, and I think too, he's probably, what was the one thing Biscuit and Ennis have talked about? How many times people have tried to help Kenny Payne and whatnot. I think he'll probably be a little bit more manageable. Not to say like you got to micromanage him, but it's like, hey, you need to talk to this guy. Hey, you need to talk to this donor. Hey, this would get you some really good brownie points from the press. Hey, this would do. And I think with Josh kind of and we can talk about how we arrived here. And I'm sure you all probably talked about that. I know you all talked about that on the show today, but I don't know if you all talked about that again. But like for still wanting to take the job when it was very public, or the perception was in optics, it probably wasn't the first or second choice to get here. And for him to be open-minded enough to still be like, I still want this job, and kind of checking the box of, okay, I'm crawling to come here. I know that people kind of spliced a lot of those words of Josh Hurd putting that out there, but I think he's a little bit more manageable from the standpoint of, he can take advice, and it's like you're going to do it. You don't have to worry about him blowing off donor meetings. It sounds like there's reports out there that he's already called. I have a buddy that works at a prominent company here. It says he called the CEO of their company tonight. So with
Let's
that, what
get
you
it,
want.
coach. Come on, coach.
I don't
That's
know.
what I like to hear.
Jody,
yeah, baby.
I think Jody put something out like that as well. There's other ones, but I have a buddy that works
he was reaching out to players in the portal. You know, I think I heard that from somebody talking about Jody.
So, yeah, I mean, those are some things that it's like you can get some good publicity and some good pub if you do some things. Like the people that were trying to help Kenny, I mean, let's be honest, like they were looking out for his best interest. Like there was no alternative motive or anything. So it feels like with the mistakes you had with that, Kelsey, it's like, okay, if you're going to come here, you got to do it this way. And I think you're seeing that early on with some of the reports that are out there.
So as far as like concrete questions, I think one that would really speak exactly, like directly to some of the real concerns that people might have with Pat Kelsey is you worked with Chris Mack at multiple spots. You come from the same coaching tree. How are you similar and how are you different from his coaching style in your system and your approach? And I think that's something that's
I gotta ask that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a home run question that everybody would love to hear the answer to. And Jeff, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be at the press conference, but if any of you guys, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out in time, but if any of you guys are there, you are welcome to take that question and address the man directly.
Yeah, because that's what people are going to want to know, though. Like we saw
seriously,
the Chris Mack experiment, whatever it was, it didn't work out in the end. Right. So we saw that, and we saw and even during the Chris Mack, like, because Chris Mack is a coach, like he can coach. Let's not get it twisted. But during the end of the experiment, it didn't work. And so how was it that you coming from that tree, working with him both at Wake Forest and Xavier, how can we kind of guarantee that this won't be Chris Mack part 2? Like, because that's a lot of the comments that I see. Like, for the people that know nothing about, at least initially, know nothing about Pat Kelsey, is like, oh, we're hiring a less accomplished Chris Mack, a Chris Mack on Red Bull, right? Like, or whatever, whatever analogy you wanted to use. And it's like, how can you guarantee the fan base that a guy that Josh Hurd, his first major move was showing him the door? You're not that guy this time. And that's going to be important for him to kind of lay that out. And I'm sure if they're doing like prep for the press conference, that is probably the number one thing. Our prep is going to be making sure you lay out to our fan base that you're not Chris Mack. And that's going to be important for him to say.
So we've got in the chat people asking some version of this. Are you going to ask the hard questions?
Yeah, is that Lawrence? That's Lawrence.
Okay, Lawrence. Listen, I have COVID. I'm stuck in my basement. I don't think I'm going to be clear, so I don't get to ask any questions tomorrow, and I'm pissed off about it.
I want to see the test. I want to know you're not bitching out. You're not faking like you're sick, so you don't have to do it.
But I do want to know, like, what are the hard questions for Pat Kelsey? Like, what are the hard questions? I think obviously the where are you, the continuity and discontinuity with Chris Mack, is any kind of about that, your experience level or comfort level with this level of recruiting and that sort of thing, right? I think those are tougher questions. I think it would be fair to ask him like how he feels or how he's approaching the fact that it's very publicly was not the first choice.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a tough question.
I think it's fair to ask him like, how long is this going to take? And don't say don't say that. Say whatever you're.
Don't say that.
Yeah, just stop it. Like that sort, like those questions. I mean, how reasonably long do you think this will take? And it will be a good exercise, that question in particular, in all of us practicing asking the right questions and conflating this thing getting fixed to like where it's going to be on kind of an annual basis versus just get better next year. Like, because there's a big difference, because I think sometimes we conflate like this thing getting all the way fixed to it being better from day one. And I do think that one of the comments made just a little while ago is right. The harder questions are probably for Josh Hurd.
Right.
Right?
And that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Chicken
It's
King
going
or
to be
Indy?
interesting to watch him tomorrow too. Like I think more so than Kelsey, because whatever hate or anger or whatever vitriol you feel towards Kelsey, a lot of that stems from, like Dave said earlier, this search. And so the tough questions are going to be for Hurd. And I wonder how he is going to handle tomorrow, right? Like how is Hurd going to handle tomorrow? Because I mean, just publicly from what we've seen Hurd, he's been able to maneuver and done all the right things and said all the right things. But tomorrow's a little different. Like it's a little different space. It's not firing Kenny Payne. It's not letting go of Chris Mack. It's hiring a guy who, like you said, very publicly wasn't your number one or at least your number two guy. So, like, how can you sway me or sell me if I'm the fan base that this is the right guy when you didn't even think he was the number one guy on your list? And so it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out.
I want the very first question to her to be, how much is the buyout? I just want. Do we know that already? I just want that to be the first question.
That's super weird. That's like asking somebody like if they have a prenup like right in front of you.
Yeah. Like Josh Hurd, great job getting this done. I appreciate that you taking the time. First question: how much is the buyout? I just want to be safe. We've done this too many times recently. How much was the buyout? I just want to know. We'll start raising money just in case.
Well, and Kelsey and Ennis, I know you and I had some fun with this in the previous ones that we've done. I texted my buddy who apparently may or may not loosely be related to him. So I was like, I just heads up, I maybe said on the air that he's a police sketch. Like a random white male police sketch when you see the guy. So I just put that out there so there's no ill will toward anything. And I know a couple other folks who are just having fun with it. Like you wouldn't know him if he walked in. But I think when you see the energy and like how he's, had 8 cups of coffee, he brings the energy. So it's like, I think he's going to make an impression on some folks that are just completely out on this. I'm with you. I think the Josh Hurd stuff is going to be fascinating because look, let's be honest, this optically and publicly has been perceived as a very sloppy, thrown together, missed on a couple guys. I mean, this is a coaching search, but I mean, I don't know if all coaching searches go like the way this one went. So I'm sure Josh would say he's not going to go into those details. He'll probably dodge some of the questions from that. And like, I mean, that's not really the place. It is the place to ask him, but when the guy's hired, is it really the place for him to answer it and talk about the guys that didn't take the job? That's an awkward dynamic that I'm sure Tim Sullivan or others there will probably ask that, but I just don't know how much you will get from Josh Hurd tomorrow on that.
Dude, so I asked this on the show. Does Pat Kelsey use his, they warned me about your fucking ass. Does he use that on Sullivan or Rick Bozich? Or Mark Blankenmaker?
Blank
I said
from
blank,
Hawaii,
but he's not going to be there.
See, to me,
we got all the heavy hitters out.
If there's one guy who's ready, I feel like after carrying all that water for the last 2 years, Bozich is going to be. I just feel like he's going to have it out for PK. He had it for KP, but he's going to have it out for PK. This is how I kind of view it. We'll see.
He retroactively had it out for Chris Mack, So it's. It was. I mean, remember the article he wrote, like right when they hired Kenny Payne. Instead of being like positive about his friend getting the job, it was basically a shame on you for not hiring him 4 years ago. And it was like, all right, man, well that's cool. That's a cool way to start this off.
I do remember that.
How's that working 2 years later?
Will Rick Bozich accidentally call him Chris?
Travis.
Trevor?
Hey, you have talk about your brother in the suite that was shirtless. Oh man.
I don't know where we go from there.
I know, Justin. I'm not used to this delay with your high-speed internet.
Since we're talking about the tougher questions for Josh, in a quick look, I don't really know how much Jeff Goodman actually talks to Josh Hurd. I'd like to think it's less than I do, which is none. But said in one of those kind of a quick reaction video with Rob Doster earlier that Josh didn't really do interviews until after they had actually fired Kenny. And that strikes me as one of those where it's like, best case, that's technically true. That they didn't actually interview guys until they'd fired him. But worst case, they really sat on their hands for like a really long time and didn't do as much pre-work on this as we had hoped that they would have. And I suspect that there's a lot of wiggle room in what it means to quote-unquote interview somebody there. But this certainly does have the feelings of a search that wasn't nearly as long and drawn out and particular as we were hoping for. It does feel like I have this seeking suspicion that I'm sure no one will ever confirm, that Josh was kind of holding out hope that Kenny would save him from having to do this until like really late in this.
That's terrifying to me. That's freaking terrifying.
I could believe that. No, I genuinely could believe that because it's just like this. You're gonna have to like this is. Like, this sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, think about it, because Josh took full responsibility for hiring Kenny, even though I feel like he was pressured into doing it. And then nobody gives him credit for Brom. Like, nobody, like they feel like a chimpanzee could have hired Brom. As long as, like, the timing was there, anybody could have got that deal done. And so you're hoping that Kenny works, because if it comes down to hiring a basketball coach and you don't get that right, your job is on the line. And who wants to be in that position? Nobody wants to be in that position. So I could definitely believe like he was hoping Kenny could resonate something within both the team and the fan base, and that just quite frankly never happened.
I guess, so my question to that is, I'm trying to avoid doing the thing that everybody, all the fan base does, and I'm not trying to do it, but like I go back to my experience with athletic directors. We've had one before this that we have extensive experience with, and that is Tom Jurich. And I'm sorry to bring him up, but like the way at least the way I was aware that he operated was he always had, you always have a list. I would imagine every AD, you have a list, you have that going, you have it ready, you're working on it. Because one, if the guy leaves because he gets a better job, or B, this happens. I don't know how, if you're Josh Hurd, that you really were. If this is a scenario that's true, that he's banking on KP saving him, like that they actually believed after watching the full last season, and what I mean is year 1 or year 0 or whatever you want to call it, and being like, no, this guy can coach. It's just the players that are the problem. Like that to me is terrifying. If they actually think, I don't believe that, but like that would be a giant red flag for me. You know what I mean?
Justin, but I want to be clear. Like, I wasn't saying like that Josh thought it would work until the very end. I think Josh didn't think it would work by December.
I understand what you're saying.
But I'm saying I think he was hoping Kenny might save him from having to do this, and that the pre-work that got done was kind of slow played, perhaps.
Yeah.
Leaving himself an out to just keep Kenny if Kenny merited it. And for that brief little time where they won 2 out of 3, hearts got soft for a little while.
No, it definitely did. It definitely did. First of all, Lawrence's comment, calling a man Tiny Tom Cruise when Tom Cruise is already tiny, is hilarious.
Yeah, Tiny Tom Cruise is just Tom Cruise.
I think Pat Kelsey's taller than Tom Cruise.
Have him jump on a couch tomorrow.
Will he crawl into the press conference tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what I wanted the military crawl in.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him.
Army crawl.
It's not off the table. It's like with him, just based off everything that I keep seeing, like all of this energy that I'm seeing and hearing people talk about, it's not off the table. It's not off the table.
This
side note, I think this is funny. I think this is really funny. This is a side note. You know how all the players from U of L keep hitting the portal? We saw Brandon and Trey and a couple, guys hit the portal today. And I was tuned in to CSZ, and they said that Jeremy goes, under my understanding, that if Nolan is brought back, 4 to 5 of those guys will come back.
You gotta look, guys. I
want it. You guys delivered. I gave it up, and you guys delivered. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm not even. This is for everybody out there because some people have mentioned Nolan in the comments. I'm not. even disputing that. I'm really not. I don't like the players might love Nolan, and maybe that's true. Nolan is not going to be on this staff. I'm just going to let you all know that. I mean, Jeff and I have talked about it, and Mark on there, where it's like, dude, in that report, it wasn't sour grapes and Kenny Payne. There was a source inside the athletic department that confirmed that Nolan Smith was the leak in that situation. I wish Nolan Smith the best, but it's not. He's not going to be employed by U of L next year. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, look,
That's just going to put that out. Just going to get that out of the way.
Yeah. I'll say, look, I know that like I feel like Diener and Blankenbaker are they're too hard on Nolan. Like I think that they are right to react to some of what Nolan has done, but the punishment doesn't fit the crime, so to speak. But Nolan is for people who he is a friend to. They're very loyal to him, and Jeremy's pretty straightforward about it. So it's not like he tries to hide it or anything.
Right.
Nolan didn't do himself any favors in his time here, and quite frankly, like while I envy Jeremy for getting him to come on, Nolan shouldn't be doing that. Like Nolan shouldn't be doing any of this stuff. And I mentioned this on the show earlier today. I want to mention it again. Like there were some folks who gave everyone a hard time for being like, dude, what's up with the wrong shoes? We are an Adidas school. And we're made to feel like you were being idiots for thinking it. And on that podcast with Jeremy, I would encourage everybody to go listen to the whole thing. Cause I thought it was pretty revealing. Honestly, I thought they did a good job of just getting Nolan to start talking and let him go. And it was good. But he said he was wrong. He said he made a mistake. Right. He said he shouldn't have done that. And here's what I hope. I hope that this has all been one good lesson for us all, like things we shouldn't do or things that we should all kind of agree to not do with this guy. It is not any of the five heads in this broadcast right now. It is not our job to sell you on Pat Kelsey or to convince you to hate Pat Kelsey. It's not our job to sell you on it. Or the opposite, whatever, to buy you on it. That doesn't make sense. But like, there's no, it's not our place. It's his place. And we need a break from telling people that their eyes don't work.
Yeah, that was the most annoying part of especially the first year, even the 6 months before we played a game, was anybody who raised a hand and was like, that's not, I mean, is anybody else kind of concerned that we don't have a coaching staff in place yet? Or you look around and go, is anybody else concerned that he doesn't seem to have a strength and conditioning coach? Is anybody else concerned that he didn't get anybody out of the portal in the first year? And like everyone's looking around going, these all seem like things that should have happened already, and then all of a sudden it's like, Nolan's seems to defiantly be wearing Nike and then New Balance, which, all right, and we're just getting excuses for all of it, and we're looking at it going, dude,
it wasn't just him. I always love saying it.
You don't have to just because you like a guy doesn't mean you have to support everything he does. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, just
the point is, Nolan's not going to be on the staff. Just stop.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
That's the grand point. Like, that's not happening, guys. Like, he was literally confirmed to be a leak. It's not happening. And then, like you said, the things that, like, and we can do this with Pat Kelsey, too. If you see things that are abnormal, even before you play a game, like, that is cause for concern. And I mean, that is cause for concern. Like, I mean, if Pat Kelsey, we didn't do the getting off the helicopter like we did with off the private jet with Kenny Payne. But if Pat Kelsey got off a private jet with a Under Armour hat on, that would be cause for concern. If any of his assistants did do a TV show with Kendrick Haskins with Reeboks or Under Armour shoes or the Steph Currys or the Jason Tatums, that is cause for concern. Like, these are the same, like, this is not just a one-way street. Like, no, but I can probably pretty much guarantee you this. That probably won't happen. That just won't happen. I feel pretty safe in saying that won't happen.
Well, I'm sure it was probably laid out for him too. Like, hey, if you're going to take this job, these are some very strict guidelines that you need to like be in line with our vision of what that exactly. And that's where I think it's like, hey, Pat Kelsey, I know it's funny to see like him, hanging on the rim and whatnot, that people doing the Army bear crawl and whatnot. But I think it was Josh Hurd through all the, if you want to point the faults through how sloppy maybe this was. I'll grant you your argument on that. But I think at the end of the day, when he offered the job, it's like, you have to do these things. Like or this isn't the place for you. Now you can make the argument whatever choice he was on at this point. Maybe he had a little bit more leverage, but I think in order to take this job, the shoe stuff, the gear stuff, talking to donors, doing the things that have been kind of rumored and some reported that KP didn't do, you just can't have that happen again. And I think that's why we just talked about, you're seeing him make some calls to some really big donors and CEOs here to try to galvanize some support that may be out on this hire when it looked like it was going to be other people. So that's what I think you're going to get from him tomorrow. And I think when people talk about winning the press conference, from the interviews I've seen, he seems like a very energetic, personable guy where people will be like, I'm going to buy in. And we've seen this over and over again. I mean, Rubich is my guy. I love him to death. But it was great. I mean, he was mad. Like, he was mad.
Goodness.
11:50, he was done. He didn't want to have any of it. At 11:50, and I tweeted out, "Good on Rubich for sticking by his guns." And the next thing I know, like if you go to his timeline, go look at his timeline. Within an hour, it's whatever. Pat Kelsey is the off-brand something Chris Mack or something like that, and then the next one, this is my guy, let's go, or something like that.
And admittedly, but admittedly, like Rumage says that, he's like, you're negotiating with the terrorists with me, because he's like, I'm gonna, like, I was all in on KP until I wasn't. So like, but I think that's kind of that's fandom in a nutshell. And Steve, to his credit, says as much. And I think a lot of people that are out on this, it's going to be a bleep sandwich as you try to crawl through all of this until you get the basketball season. And then, like Mark said, your eyes won't lie to you.
And I think Rumage is representative of just like the good fan heart. Like, you want to like this person, and I think there's something to be said, whoever it was. I think if there's something to be said for Pat Kelsey looking at this and knowing that I might have just gotten my chance at this job because someone misreported death threats were made about somebody else, and being like, I'm in, you crazy bastards, I want that job. Like, there's something to be said for running towards this.
That's
knowing, what he's coming into. And look, as far as like the energy and the antics, I think that you can make a very real case that he's a better personality fit than Dusty May was going to be. I think Dusty May is cerebral, bookish, which appeals to me, obviously. But like that, we do like a little unbalanced, and he's very balanced, and he might be at a better place for him. And while it didn't look great, it may have ended up in a better place, for sure. And I do think Dusty's kind of Dusty. Listen to me. I think Pat's. That's gonna suck. I'm gonna do that so much. Because of Dusty and Kelsey.
Been a crazy 48, 72 hours with all the names. You'll
get over it quick, Mark.
Yeah, I do think his edginess resonates with that asshole itch that we have. We just do. We have it. We want it. Live with it, okay? We do. NC State fans have it. Auburn fans have it. Like, there are fan bases who are just like, F you guys. And that's us. And I think he does sort of bang that gong a lot better than Dusty May would have, in the same way that like Satterfield didn't. Like, because you knew Satterfield had like a really healthy sense of self, and you're like, fuck that, I want to win.
Yeah, he looks like that guy. He looks exactly like that. That's the guy who's going to say that. I do want to.
He's the guy at the golf course that doesn't tuck in his shirt, and he's like, I'm wearing cargo shorts on here, and I have a mullet, and I'm bringing my own beer. Yeah, that's
and I'm chugging them, and I'm doing all like just imagine what he'll be like at a tailgate. Like, he's the guy that can come hang out at our tent at the tailgate. You know what I mean? Like, he's throwing back some mules or something. Like, like that is what I can see him. He's like a bro's bro almost. It's kind of like, man, that's a dude that and that'll work if you're winning. Like that'll work in going after coaches, yelling, screaming, getting hyped up. If you're winning, this is going to be like heaven to him because when he goes out in public, people are going to look at him like a rock star. Like he is literally going to be a rock star. Him and his 11-year-old shit talking son too. His son talks shit. Like they're going to be
him and Brady Brom seats on the aisle. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. And they're going to be kings of the castle. But you have to win games. You have to win games.
And by the way, if you don't win games, this shit becomes Butch Jones like immediately.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The choice
really
is
fast.
Yeah.
I will
really fast.
I will say that like backtrack a little bit, kind of like what you're talking about the Rummage fan, and I give Rummage a lot of credit that he can do that because I don't have it in me. But we have so many of those fans in this fan base, and it's wild to me almost because like I just said, most of the guys or whatever, but Pat Kelsey I'm kind of out on. Like he's just one that I don't know if I can do it.
It felt like a throwaway name. It felt like a throwaway name this time last week. I will grant you that.
Filler.
And now, yes, and now that it's like it's happening, all the same people that were tweeting at me agreeing, pissing and moaning about Kenny Payne have now flipped back to I'm the bleeping asshole because I'm not all in on Pat Kelsey. And it's insanity to me that I'm like, did you all just wake up? Like what dementia do you have right now? Do you not realize what we just dealt with? Like, it's fine. We can support the guy. But, like, you don't have to go full in. Like, you don't have to be what's Pat Kelsey going to have? Instead of Mafia, what does he get? Does he get do we name a group of
I don't think it'll ever be like that though. I don't think because Pat Kelsey is not coming in the same way that Kenny Payne came in. I've talked about this before. Kenny Payne came in with two built-in fan bases. He came in with the former players and that kind of base, and because he was the first black coach in the history of U of L basketball. Like, those are two built-in bases that he had off the jump just because of who he was. Without, and some of them, not all, but some of them turned a blind eye to all the negligence that was taking place for the better part of the 2 years. Like that, and it's because of who they were and their allegiance to being in said base. See, Pat Kelsey isn't coming in with that. Like, Pat Kelsey is actually coming in with more doubters than believers, I think. Like, because he was the third choice, because he is coming from College of Charleston and not the New York Knicks or the University of Kentucky like Kenny Payne. Because he has a long list of coaching experience, but it's all been at lower levels. Winthrop, College of Charleston. He's not coming from a Kansas State like a Jerome Tang or a Baylor like a Scott Drew, or even as much success as Dusty May in the tournament at FAU. So, like, he's coming in as the underdog, as most people, I'm not going to say most, but a lot of people expecting him to fail. And that's the difference. And so in his mind, it's like, okay, I've been in this predicament before. I was that when I was the head coach of Winthrop. I was that going to College of Charleston when I turned down UMass 30 minutes before the press conference. And now I'm going to prove these folks wrong because I've actually worked my entire life to get to this point. Now, can you seize the moment? That is the ultimate question.
And I'll add, I saw some comments, some of your comments in the chat, saying basically like Scotty D had really nice things to say about him. Dan Cronin of all had nice things to say.
That was crazy. I thought it was a parody account.
I did too, and then I had to actually check it. It's like, oh, that's really him.
So there was that, and I have a really good friend who coaches in D2 basketball in North Carolina, but knows him, and he immediately started texting me like right away, like, you're gonna love him, and I do think, on the one hand, we are, you're certainly justified in just sort of shrugging off the praise after the way it went for Kenny. And for Chris Mack, quite frankly. But I will say, if you want to compare the two, the praise that I've been seeing for Pat is a lot more like retail instead of wholesale. It's a lot more specific. It's a lot more results. If it's almost like I see dead people. Damn it, what's that movie called?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Thank you, God. Where you're like, oh shit, all the doorknobs were red. like you start looking back and you start looking at all the things when people were praising Kenny. It was about like him, the person, and like emotional intelligence and all this stuff. And it was very little like, yeah, well, and it was like personality and not basketball-ity. and the stuff I think you see about Pat is basketball. You do get personality. Yeah, but a whole lot of like his teams are really damn good at basketball too, which we need more of that.
Yes. And that it goes to my point when I said, like, you don't just want to label him as just the energy guy. Like, no, this guy has real results. Granted, it's at a lower level, but these are like as we've learned over the last 3 years, it's not always easy to win basketball games. As easy as it seemed the previous 50, we obviously have learned that it's actually not as easy to win those basketball games. And he actually has real results of success on the basketball court. It just so happened that he is this big energy, fun-loving, crazy kind of guy. It looks like he's from Dixie Highway.
Oh, he's totally went to the 1 a.m. Hooters UFC fight for sure. I mean,
don't you think it is weird though that you can have a coaching search where let's just power rank them or chronologically, where you went Scott Drew, and then Dusty May, and then Pat Kelsey. Those guys are not alike at all.
At all.
How were they 1, 2, 3? I don't understand what you were doing that like those are 1, 2, 3. What was the criteria that it spit them out like that?
Which is why I'm a little concerned, because it's like a little bit of this is just real quick statement. That's why I'm a little bit concerned, because it's not a clear picture to me of like what you want Louisville basketball to be moving forward. It's kind of like a hodgepodge of you throw whatever at the wall, one of these hopefully will work. Somebody's got to say yes. Go ahead, Dave.
But honestly, like this, the truth is, even though Scott Drew and Dusty May, obviously Scott Drew was a unanimous choice from everybody. He and Dusty May clearly didn't fit the criteria that he set out at his initial press conference, though, of people that he wanted. And I know that it's a term that he's probably wished he hadn't said at this point, but he said he wanted a guy that wanted to crawl to Louisville to take this job. And it's like, well, Scott Drew's not going to do that. And clearly Dusty May didn't want to do that. But it feels like Pat Kelsey is the kind of guy that's bringing you that energy. This is not trying to, like, put a positive spin on this. I'm just saying, like, if you're asking why there's such a difference between these guys, is this might be more of the kind of guy that he actually was looking for. You know what I'm saying? And maybe felt obligated to hire the other, or at least take a shot at the other guys.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like Kelsey and even Josh Schertz to a degree, he is not the same as Kelsey, but he's got a hard-nosed mentality. You know what I mean? And would clearly probably has more desire for this type of a job, and circumstances maybe got in the way more than anything. But I'm just saying, as far as vibing and working together and the kind of coach you wanted to see here, somebody who's going to be voracious, and just be absolutely 100 and turn to 11 on everything right now, because he's so tired of seeing somebody that seemed like he was stuck in neutral for 2 years. I mean, this might be the antidote for that. Like, whether this is the right hire or not, time will tell. But he answers a lot of the questions a lot of the things that Kenny Payne left us starving for. He checks those boxes immediately. And while, look, his defense was like 230th this year in the regular season, it wasn't good. His offense is great. I've been watching more Charleston. I only got to see him once this year in live, and it wasn't the whole game. But, I mean, obviously, with me name dropping him a few times this season, I was at least somewhat familiar with Pat Kelsey. But obviously trying to familiarize myself with his defensive system a little bit more. It like I said earlier, it seems like it skews more from the pack line, than some of the guys that he coached with on that tree. But I don't know. It's not working, whatever it is. And he's got to figure that out.
And that is, but
got to figure that part of it out.
It's true.
Did you?
I just,
you
get up. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave. Oh, he's talking. Did you all bring up the
Mom,
agent component
Meatloaf!
that Diener was? Yeah, Mom, Meatloaf. Did you all bring up the agent component that Diener was talking about? How Richard
No, we haven't said it.
Scott Drew, and Shirts all apparently had the same agent, and what that dynamic for the Josh Hurt. Look, I know we're arrived at Pat Kelsey, but so forgive me if I'm talking about things that you already have talked about, but that's fascinating to me. It's just like, was this guy kind of outside of the clutch with Dusty May component with Andy Miller? I'm curious to like if we'll get any insight to that from Josh. I'm assuming no, but that's something that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, he's gonna stay far, far away from that.
Yeah, I figured.
He's gonna stay far, far away from that because it's a kind of a play that we see all across sports. Just even with the Alabama opening in football, I always love using that example. Dan Lanning, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Norvell, and Steve Sarkisian like all had the same agent. Right. So their agent used Bama knowing that Kalen DeBoer was going to get the job the whole time. But he used that Alabama opening to get all three of those other guys extensions. And they all have, and Nick Saban has that agent too, by the way. So like he knew Saban was retiring and knew all those other guys were his clients. So you manipulate the system to make sure that all of your guys get paid because you get a cut of all that. So it's always nice to get new money.
Yeah, I thought the shirt stuff, man, was just like it looked like it was heading that way, and then just I mean, Kelsey was always mentioned though, so maybe it's Josh. Maybe we'll find out tomorrow that Josh is just keeping it really close to his vest. And look, it doesn't look that way to me. It looks very sloppy of how he arrived here, but as Mark pointed out, you want the guy that's kind of running the fire. It's like, oh, they didn't want it. I don't care. I still want this job, and that's kind of a good trait to have at a job like this that people will really latch on to.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned it. So, what, an hour and 60 minutes in? If you haven't already, guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button. Like the stream that we're doing on here. It helps us continue to bring you more and more content, things like that. And the most importantly, 1,000, about 1,900 people in here right now. If you haven't already, go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's what we're doing. A lot of stuff on there. By the end of the stream, I guess I'll randomly go through here and announce that giveaway for that person that I've been meaning
like
to
a
do.
V-Show prize pack, man.
Yeah. So I'll pick somebody and then I'll have you reach out. We'll do that at the end of this. But anyway, just wanted to go ahead and plug that. Make sure you go and subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's really will help us in the long run. That's where we can really do a lot of cool things on here in the future. And I'm trying to convince Diener that spaces are cool, but you can do more here. There's more to do.
This is the way, man. But
you put your pretty face on the internet, and everybody can see you. And Matt Hayes, just to let you know, the reason why I'm wearing the station polo is because I was shirtless before we went on air, and I just didn't think you guys needed that in your life right now. You've been through a lot.
Hey, I've seen in the comments, and I know you guys have either seen Showtex or on Twitter or whatever. I hate that a lot of times the coaching search gets talked about like Josh is out here drafting. Like he got exactly who he aimed for, and what a jackass for not hiring a national championship coach. And instead of this is the one point Bob really made articulately this week about coaching searches is that it's a mutual thing. That you have to get the coach to also want to do this. And while it might take a selling job, there's a very, very, very fine line between an athletic director selling somebody and having to kind of twist somebody's arm into it. And I think it was important for Louisville to not tilt over there and end up getting somebody here who's kind of only here to get a gigantic payday without really having their heart in kind of what this is going to be like. We've had enough of that. And I think the real shame in a lot of this is that I think we've only started to really dislike what Kenny did. And I'm like, the more this goes along, the more I'm really disappointed in him as a person for the way that he treated this job. Like it's going to sound like sour grapes. And sometimes I see it in the text and I'm like, he's gone, move on. It's been 2 weeks. like the body's still warm. We're going to talk about this because if we don't learn from it, this has been a complete waste of time. And so we are going to talk about it. And I'm like, the longer this goes and the more you realize the things that were not getting done, the things that were done in just horribly kind of slipshod manner, it makes you realize like how much actual work really goes into being that bad. And how like we should not take on this persona or like this like weight that like it's super duper hard to win here. It's not. It is not hard to win here.
It's not hard to be one of the 68 teams. And that's not like, I'm not saying you got to win the championship, but to be one of the 68 teams when all these press conferences we've had in the last decade, and look, stuff has happened here. The highest revenue brought in, like you can be one of the 68 teams. Michigan State got in on 19 and 14. You can do it.
Then won a game.
Virginia got in.
Right. Yeah.
And to that point, like you said, but in order, you have to want to be here. Like you have to want whatever comes with that. And we quickly found out. That's why I said, watch how Pat Kelsey moves over the next 2 months. Just watch. I don't know the man, but I know that he is about to like you're about to see things really move in fact, whether it's getting the staff together, hitting the recruiting trail. Hell, Phil came on here and told us he's already talking to CEOs. He hasn't even been announced yet. He hasn't even been officially announced yet, and he's already making outreach in the community. Like this man is about to hit the ground running because he understands this is a job of a lifetime. Like to most people coming from his position, a longtime assistant, a longtime small school coach, like this is an opportunity that he doesn't want to squander. He's not taking this for granted. He's not someone that's like, if I fail at this, I'll get another chance at this. No, you get one shot. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't make this work, you get one shot at this, and therefore you better make the most out of this, especially since you weren't the first option. And so therefore you weren't the first option, but we landed on you. What can you do with that opportunity? And I think he is going to make the most out of it. Now, once again, my only thing is how good can he be? That I don't know. Like, can he win? Can he make multiple Final Fours? Can he win you a national championship? Can he build a championship roster? That I don't know. And if you're skeptical of that, let us know. Like, I'm okay with you being skeptical. If you don't even think he's going to be good, tell me. Put it out there. Like, that's okay. I think he's going to be good. How good? That's the only thing that concerns me is, can you win a national championship with Pat Kelsey? I don't know that yet. If you're asking me, gun in my head right now, I have to say no, right? Because there's zero tournament success, albeit at a small school, but that's not to say that can't change.
I'm less worried about the zero tournament success right now than the defense, because you can't win championships without great defense. I mean, you can explain away the lack of tournament success because he was at auto qualifier conferences as 12 and 13 seeds, but you can't really explain away that defense, and you can win 25 games playing shoddy defense, even in the ACC. You really can.
Kentucky do it. But you can't do it this year.
Right. You can do it. You can do it. Not 230th ranked defense, but like 150th ranked defense. You can win 25 games, but you're going to get run out of that tournament. It's going to happen. And that's – go ahead, sir. That's the biggest concern.
One of the commenters asked, are we concerned that this will all be a waste, that he'll back out 25 minutes before the press conference? What's everybody's understanding of that? I don't think that reflects poorly on him. Coaches do this sort of thing. And if you'd like a really, really good example, there's one that I know all of us would have welcomed with all the open arms there is in Billy Donovan, who did that, who did the introductory press conference with the Magic. And then didn't take the job.
Yeah.
And then didn't take the job and went back for another several years. I'm not.
My God, I almost forgot about that.
I didn't. I remember that very vividly.
I almost forgot about that. That's wild.
What's job number one, fellas? If you're Pat Kelsey, you've got a press conference tomorrow, and then the rest of your life, like your job starts at 3:30 tomorrow. In your mind, job number one might be too vague. What do you
on the drive?
Accomplishment number
one.
Ennis?
Hop
Okay,
on the
thank
drive
you.
of Mark
That's
Ennis.
good
You
answer.
know, like you
Good
gotta,
answer.
yeah. Like I like hop on the drive of Mark Ennis and talk about, like, obviously there's standard answers that you have for a press conference, and obviously there's an opening statement, and a couple of guys are gonna drill you, whether it's Tim Sullivan, Bozich, myself, whoever, and then pause.
Phrasing.
Yeah,
A radio
pause.
gangbang,
No,
if you
no
will.
Diddy. Yeah, no Diddy on that one. No Diddy. My bad. Hold on.
Mike Hughes
Whoa.
going to be
A couple
in there.
guys are really going to drill you.
Yeah, no Diddy.
This seriously
I'm
is
sorry.
ESPN Louisville After Dark
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, big pause, man. Oh, no, but like after that, it's like it's your selling job. Like it's to reassure the fan base that you are, even though you may not have been the first choice, you're the right choice. And so doing things like talking to Mark Ennis about being the next head coach at Louisville basketball,
Fountain
announcing
pens.
your
You can talk
staff.
about fountain pens too. Fountain
Yeah.
pens, totally cool also.
Announcing your staff. Like here's a couple of guys I'm bringing with me, College of Charleston. I in the next week I'll have my staff filled. Like we're not taking the individual press conference route. We're not. That didn't work. We're not waiting 3 weeks to get 3 assistants. Nah, dog. By the end of next week, I hope the entire staff is filled out. Like let's get this thing rolling, and then we're starting to see offers to kids that are in the portal. That's a kind of like what I'd like to see.
I think the car wash thing that's spot on, and yes, it would be great if he went on every ESPN Louisville show. I agree. I think that would be do a ton of good.
Yeah, I need him on with Streeble.
No round table. That's what I was about to say. No round table.
Okay. Yeah, almost.
Like, why is this loud ass guy asking me about aliens? What the hell have I signed up for?
Sounds like a Wookiee. Sounds like a Wookiee over
Coach,
there.
what do you think about L's down? Like, all right, James. He's
I think like you've seen some of the things on social media that he's done that a lot of the basketball bennies and junkies have gravitated toward. I think something like that. Obviously, talking to the donors, it sounds my buddy said that he'll eat cat food, right? Yeah, do something trendy like that. But no, I think doing little things like that. Sorry, I have a terrible delay, Soforo. This must be your internet from the beach. I apologize about that. But look, he's going to have to do the car wash.
Sorry, guys. We won't do this again. My bad. It's all smooth for me. So
No. You're
it's at least going out good.
You're live from Destin. Oh, well, that works for me. But like, I think he just is going to have to try and get these folks that are out, because I'm seeing so many in the comments. How do you get these big donors back that wanted names like Billy Donovan and Scott Drew? Are they just going to try to cut NIL? And I think it'll be FOMO eventually, right? Like if you thought you were going to get these big names, and then it's like, okay, this pleasantly surpasses it was going to be, and your friends start going back to the games, and then they start going to suites. And I think it'll be a slow drip, if you will, but you could eventually get there. But I think it's not going to happen. The press conference tomorrow, he may excite some people, like, okay, I'm all back in, like the Rummages of the world, but like big donors and stuff, it's going to have to be show me. And it's going to be a while to get there, but it's going to be 7 months until, if you get a pleasant surprise in the exhibition game, or if you get the battle for Atlantis, where people are really getting excited. It's like, okay, I'm starting to buy in. I see what he's building toward. The problem with Kenny Payne, you never saw what he was building toward. And if you eventually get there and see something, and people talking about some of the former players, meeting with the players, look, there's some Brandon Huntley Hatfield obviously could be a bright spot with that. But if this staff doesn't want to bring back anybody, I'm okay with that too.
That is a worry that I have. And I guess my question is, so like, is the money that they have and the collective, like, you can't like rescind that right now, right? Like it's what they have. And they're like, he can work with that the same as Scott Drew could have worked with it, or anybody else could have worked with it, right? Like the reason I asked that is I did have my trepidation of like, oh, they're going to hire this guy. If I'm a big money donor and I'm like, this is who they're hiring, this is the guy that I'm investing my money in, I don't know. I got to see more before I'm willing to pay that. And that did worry me about like how this thing gets kicked off from the beginning.
Hey, Justin, I'll say Diener like broke off it and called into the show today just to let us know he had talked to 2 people that he would say are in the upper level of people that the U of L would lean on for big dollars, and said both of them were very excited about this. So I think it was totally reasonable to be afraid that like they preferred Richard or something else. and that this might not do it for them. But at least according to two that he would have used as the gauge in these situations, they were really positive about it. So that's good. But I think it was totally reasonable to ask about that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of somebody as a peasant who has no money to offer. Like from my side, I'm just like,
yeah, I'm still not giving any money to any of you bastards.
Yes,
right?
Nothing. I may go to a game. I may spend the $20.
You get a 0% of $0 over here from Justin Soforo.
Just makes me think when Blankenbaker was like shilling out the white membership. It's one of my favorite things ever. When with the 502, there's small wins in life. When Blankenbaker put that out on Twitter,
he came out with a pullover on.
The white membership.
It's like, oh man, he's in the circle. He's in the white circle.
We got one of the comments says, if Pat has a terrible season next year and wins 10 games or less, Josh is getting fired. Listen, that's a super dumb thing to say for this reason. This is part of
Mark.
that. We got to get recalibrated. These last 2 years are asinine.
Yeah,
like they
exactly.
are.
Yes.
They are an offense. They are not like where Louisville is. And like the idea that Louisville's going to go like 10-25 next year, not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm not worried about that. I will bet you any amount of money that you want that he's got Kenny's career win total by sometime in January. And that's
easily.
12 wins. So and that's not even like a really ambitious thing for me to say, to have 12 wins by the end of January. I mean, that's just a mediocre season, right? But like, he's going to get 2/3 of that at least in the non-conference, because you're not supposed to lose to those teams, even if we're a bad Louisville team. Yes. Like, it's the worst Louisville teams since Denny's last bad team, like Rick's whole tenure and Chris Mack, everything since. You finish December, like, it's a bad non-conference when you're like 9-4. 9-3 is awful. Like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, that's how it's supposed to be, because you got a fair amount of bye games in there, and then you usually have a preseason tournament in Kentucky, but you could be having a bad year and you come out of that like 8-4, 9-3. But we had 4 wins for the entire season in the first year and 8 last year. I mean, these totals
crazy
are so,
when you say it out loud.
It's so foreign. No, it's insane. It's so foreign to this program. Like, we're gonna have to. I think most people understand that. They're gonna have to recalibrate. Like, this is, even if it's an average season next year, we're gonna smash whatever Kenny did in 2 seasons.
It's insanity to look back and like realize like what's happened the last 2 years and how many people were like willing. And I'm not talking like people talking on the radio. I'm talking about just everybody in the fan base. So many people were willing to like bend backwards to come up with this like idea. And now Carlin's going off again. This idea that like it's okay, like not okay, but making sense of Kenny Payne winning 4 games in year 1. Like that, the players, like the excuses that were made up. Like it's like, to me, I sat there like I am literally like, I know I'm an asshole, but everybody's insane. Like, for believing that in any circumstance that makes sense with the talent level that Louisville had. Like, just somehow every single.
But the vast majority of people were on your side. Like, not necessarily,
right, but quieter, but on my side. Yes, I know.
No. Everybody was quiet, bro. Like, no. Let's be honest, Justin. Let's not have revisionist history. Nobody thought it was cool to win 4 games. I'm not gonna say there wasn't people that didn't make excuses for it.
There were a lot. They were very vocal.
But 4-28.
There was more than there ever should be that were making excuses for that. I will 100%. Yes. But
I'll say that. But the overwhelming majority was like, "Hey, dude, 4-28 ain't." Now, that's not to say that most people wanted him fired after that. No, I'm not going to say that. But I will say most people were like 4-28. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
What the hell is going on in Louisville?
Okay, it was 4-28. That's not okay. But here's all these reasons why that's definitely not going to happen in year 2 of KP. And it was like bullshit.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
I'll tell you. Yeah. There was a fair amount of people doing that, but there was a lot of people that weren't. You know what I mean? And like it's the way I put it during the season, that first season, and we don't have to get too deep into this because we're looking forward right now.
Yeah, we're moving on. Better not better.
We're moving
better, not
on.
better.
But that first the way I put it, I was just like, after the first 10 games, I was like, dude, this is a absolute disaster. And when we started talking about, I was like, we'll probably end up like 5-27, and it ended up being 4-28. But I said, it's insane to fire a guy after 1 year. We agree on that, but we've never seen 5-27, which is how I put it. Ended up being 4-28. But like, wait until you actually see those numbers and try to figure out what that means. Because there was no coming back from that. Like, there was absolutely no path forward. There was nothing to make you believe it was going to get demonstrably better. But you say, all right, we know we're going to have a year 2. Let's hope he gets his shit together. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in that, and everything became clear pretty soon. We had clarity relatively soon in that second season. But look, we're not going to be dealing with that. I think what everybody fears is mediocrity, and settling into some place where, like, in NC State, it's working out for him this year, but somewhere where NC State was with Kevin Keatts for several years, where it was like, dude, this man keeps winning between 18 and 23 games. And, and like every time we try to fire him, he makes the tournament. And this time he was really getting fired, and he ended up winning the ACC tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. And now he's in the second weekend, and like, I like Kevin Keatts, and I think he knows basketball, but I think he's already shown he doesn't really have staying power. What this is probably going to end up doing is buying him another 4 years at NC State, and they're never going to be a Final Four team. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I think Louisville fans fear more than anything. They don't think that Kenny Payne's going to happen again. That's not what people worry about. They worry that Pat Kelsey's going to come in here and win 20 to 24 games every year, or somewhere around that, and stay there.
I will cross that bridge when I get there.
Right, I'm with you.
Can we please just get back to that?
No, I agree.
yeah, let's get to that.
And I want to go back to what
20
Justin
wins
was
total in a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm saying that I think that's what everybody's underlying fear is long term. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that this guy can get us good, but he can't get us where we need to be.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what Justin was saying. Yeah, I am fully prepared, and I will not hold back when I hear it. I'm not interested in hearing anyone say that Kenny got treated unfairly. I don't believe that. Because I think people worked really, really, really hard on themselves, stretched their own souls to make themselves be okay with a lot of stuff that was not okay. And to try to see, like, trained themselves to see hope where there really wasn't any hope. And I don't think that's a bad thing as fans, but we're not going to relitigate this into some sort of he got such an unfair short leash. To hell with all of that.
No.
And I'll add to it also, it's not just the losing. It's not that they lost 28 games in his first year. It's that in 25 of them, they were down by 17 or more. And these teams were terrible. So what we're never, ever going to allow to happen, it doesn't have to stay like an open wound, but I will not ever let any hints of anything slide where it's like he got treated unfairly. He did a terrible job. He did a terrible job. And he's like, he's going to be the meme of a terrible coach forever.
One of these other, streams that we did, I talked about it, and we've established, like, the only reason he got treated the way he got treated was because he would have been run out of town sooner if he wasn't an ex-player, if he didn't have, a lot of support locally. Like, if it was just some rando, if it was Pat Kelsey that came in here and did this,
you're done.
I mean, can you imagine what it would have looked like?
Yeah, Pat
Kelsey somebody with no connection to the city come in here and win 4 games?
Yeah.
Come on now. And that's the reality of it, where a lot of his supporters were crying unfair treatment, or he was at the end, when in reality, he got everything he needed and did absolutely nothing with it. And that's fine. Go in peace. We've got games to win. and a program to rebuild.
And that was one of the things that intrigued me. Like I found myself a little bit yesterday with the Richard Pitino, and I know we're looking forward, but I felt like I was getting put in a trance for a little bit with the NIL money and everything that could come with it. That I was being like, and Drew openly said, "Look, I'm biased" and things like that. He said it on our airwaves, but the thing that I kept going back to, it's like, and Richard Pitino wouldn't have been Kenny Payne. That's an insult to Richard Pitino. He's had head coaching experience, regardless of what transpired at Minnesota.
Nobody was going to be Kenny.
Right, exactly.
Nobody.
But it just felt like we were opening up the yearbook from 20 years ago and trying to rekindle something. I'm trying not to do the relationship thing that everybody does, but you were trying to do something that, like, it's like, man, like, it would be really cool. But what if you're in the same situation a couple of years from now where it's like, man, but it's Rick's dad and you're trying to really mend that fence and you know, he's done okay. It's not going to be in the 4 wins, but that was the one thing I just kept going back to over and over again. It's like, we've done this. Like if Pat Kelsey doesn't work, you fire him after. You know, there's no emotional connect. It's more business than it is emotional. And with Kenny Payne, it was emotional to the point where if it was anybody else in year 1, you're fired. And that's where I was that was the thing I kept going back to with Richard Pitino. And it's like, he wouldn't have done that. I understand that, but it would have been this awkward, hey, how are we going to do this? Make it tasteful. And now I'm glad it's just somebody that's fresh and it's looking ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Pat Kelsey thing, like we've said earlier, you're going to see like his coaching chops early. Like just with the battle for Atlantis, I mean, I'm looking at the teams that are in there. Arizona will be a top 25 team. Creighton will be a top 25 team. Obviously, Gonzaga will be a top 25 team. Don't know where Indiana will be, but they'll have good players. Oklahoma have good players, and same with West Virginia. So you're in a loaded field around Thanksgiving, and if you're able to upset, like that is what's going to get people excited. Obviously, the non-conference wins and stuff, that's one thing, but to get in that tournament and get a win or two over some really good teams for all these people that are out or all these people that no longer want to spend their money and I'll never give another dime to the University of Louisville basketball. Well, let them go there and beat an Arizona or let them upset a Creighton or let him, have good game. Even if he doesn't win some of those, have really good high intensity Louisville basketball style games with a couple of those higher level teams. That next game at the Yum Center will do 18,000. The next game at the Yum Center will see a ton of people there to get a real in-person view of this team that just went to the battle for Atlantis and had a really good showing. So, like, that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, winning cures cures it all. And I know, and I just have a really, really good feeling that even though this might not have been the guy that most of us wanted, I have a good feeling he is going to do some winning early and often.
I think that's the one.
Will it feel? How good? Hold on. How good will it feel? How much will it help him if he gets good advice and somewhere in his opening address to Louisville fans references something by what used to be there just one time, right? Yeah. Like in his opening presser, just the Sears building or something. Just like give me something. Like that. Like if he just sneak it in somewhere, act like you've done it a million times. If I'm giving him advice, like find a way to work in some sort of reference to Bachelor Banner Mall or something like that. Like just
I was getting a Polar Pop at Toy Tiger. There it is, Biscuit.
Yes.
No, it's going to be like tomorrow is going to be interesting, man. Because like you said, what is going to be the first thing that he does? Like, is the first thing after the press conference just to stick around and talk to all the guys that are there? Is it to immediately hop on Mark Ennis's show to talk about what just took place?
He's gonna go punch Josh Jameson right in the fucking face.
He's gonna do the
get
worm
out of here.
Across the stage.
Get out of here.
He does look like a guy that would have a Toy Tigers shirt. Like he would look perfect in the Toy
Diener
Tigers
has one.
shirt.
Be careful.
Yeah,
and he can do there's no way he can't do the worm. There's absolutely no way he doesn't have it. And by the way, shout out, I said this earlier today. The first thing, I look at Pat Kelsey, I was like, that's Benji the Mower Man. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And then Benji made that video basically wearing the same glasses that he was wearing and did the same exact voice. Like,
yeah,
we hired Benji the Mower Man.
Yeah, we got to get Pat because them glasses, it ain't gonna fly, dog. Them camo joggers, yeah, G with the highlighter shoes.
Jeff, you have to
G.
let him be him, man. Come on.
No. Remember the Chris Mack with the hole in the jeans
Come on.
stuff? I think that's where I think it's like, hey, coach, you got to be coachable. You got to be coachable on some of this.
Get your swag up, coach. We gonna love you.
He also had that starter Louisville jacket.
Is
though.
this
That
our
was something
advice?
sick.
Is this our advice? Just listen to what Lottie tells you. All right.
Yeah,
God.
Lottie tells you if Kenny Klein is maybe parachutes back in a little bit, maybe follow their guidance on a couple things.
All right, hey, let's do that though. Let's do it seriously. Think of something that he could do right off the bat that would just be something that wouldn't cost him anything, would be a smart, kind of deft move. Now, I would say, even though we would not be able to enjoy it until November, I would announce it right now that we're going back to open locker rooms. Like that's easy. And that's easy. It's the way we've always done it. I'm different than Chris Mack, and this is what it's like in the NBA. And that's what I would say. And like that would be a win across the board.
I think anytime you can work in a knowledge of the history of Louisville basketball into your opening statement, back into something like that. We're going to bring back the fan engagement. We're not running away from this kind of stuff because that seems like the shit that he eats up.
I was about to say that's something.
Can you imagine him at a Louisville Live? I mean, Chris Mack even looked like a G at Louisville Live with a Louisville starter jacket. Like, can you imagine this man getting out there on stage with thousands of screaming
Jack Harlow? What is Kelsey?
Oh my God, he eat that up. Like? He listens to him. He does.
I mean, Jack Harlow had Jeff Brom smiling, and that's hard. That's hard to do. Like he made Jeff Brom look like really, really fun to, it's not the easiest to do because Jeff Brom is very serious and to the point. And Kelsey is going to be like doing backflips with Harlow. Like it's going to be like his thing.
He's going to be in a video or something. It's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
I would like to see Kentucky did, and I know people are going to freak out about this, but almost like a state tour. I'm not saying they need to do that, but I would maybe have some open scrimmages, not necessarily at high schools, but like it's some different
city tour.
Yeah, something like that where you're able to,
just Jefferson County.
Rummage. No, Rummage would get mad if you didn't go to, Shepherdsville and out to Bullitt County. So
you just talking about bringing back Cardinal Caravan, man.
Yeah, little things like that. I mean,
Cardinal Caravan was legit.
There's going to be and Pitino did it one time at Cardinal Arena, I believe. Sorry, I don't mean to bring up his name. It was like T. Will and Andre McGee, but it was their freshman year, and it was at Cardinal Arena, and it was a scrimmage, and it was awesome. Like Pitino was mic'd up, and you got to see him in action. And then it kind of went away from that under the Pitino era. They tried to get creative with the Louisville Live stuff, but doing some of these open scrimmages, like I know KP and company, they tried to for some of the students, and they tried to do some of these things with that. But I think it needs to be all hands on deck. Of like we need to get people back engaged, and if there's got to be open practices, and maybe not open practices, maybe just open scrimmages throughout leading up to the tournament, that I think people will buy back into.
But to with a guy like him, I think he's open to all of that stuff. Like, I think because those are the type of things he had to do at some of those smaller schools to get the students and get the city and get the people involved. Like, I think he's open to that type of stuff. Now, granted, we have a built-in fan base, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to try that hard with us, but people will appreciate it. So to your point, Phil, it's like, hey, going around on your golf cart around campus, throwing out T-shirts, giving out bobbleheads, what I saw he was doing at College of Charleston, keep screaming our city to everybody's face, like that was their motto or whatever. Like those are the type of like gimmicky type of things that he's used to doing. So if somebody brings up like, hey coach, I think it'd be cool if you did open scrimmages at different parts around the city or different counties surrounding Louisville, I think he'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, let's do it.
Hey, I'll jump in here. I don't know if Louisville fans really want their coach, the basketball coach, to be everywhere. Like, I think, like, I don't want to see him dressed up as like the Easter Bunny, at something. And like, I think that we like the basketball coach to be kind of a superstar. Now, would we love to run into him somewhere? Yes. But everywhere, no.
It's in between a Patino and
Yeah.
Chris Mack. Like you didn't want them to be there. There's got to be a happy medium there because it's like you'd see, Chris Mack at root, but then there's Jeff Brom too because he's everywhere though. So I don't know. It's that's interesting, but he's some
literally everywhere.
There's a part of me to the basketball coach.
I agree with you. I think I'm with you guys.
And I even said it back when I was producing Andy's show. There was something to like how Patino, his aura, and of like you didn't just see him everywhere. You weren't going to see him shopping for groceries.
I think that's over though. I think that's over. Like I think that because this is not that guy. Like this guy isn't that guy. Like this guy's not going to be in a $3,000 suit on the sideline. This guy gets in other. Yeah, this guy gets in other coaches' faces. He gets in other players' faces. Like this guy, like you said, I mean, Terrence came on the show today and said he runs point guard for the scout team. Like this is the type of guy that he is. And this is the type of guy that he's going to be. I don't think that's going to change just because his location changed from Charleston to Louisville. Like I think he's going to continue to be that guy because it's got him to this point.
Then I want him to do his introductory press conference at Mike Lenning's. That's what I want, man. I feel like it's perfect. He looks Dixie Highway. I love Mike Lenning's. That's the place for him to go out.
Mike Lenning's is good.
You could do worse. Like you really could.
Poor Ken Grossman's not going to get any money from him for his suit jacket. That's what I just took away from Jeff's rant right there. Jack Grossman. Right? Maybe the introductory press conference.
There was, I think it was might have been Drew's show or Bob's show. I can't remember. Somebody talked about Denny and Rick almost like they were statesmen. There was an aura about both of them, even though they were very different people. And Denny was out there amongst the people. You'd see him shopping or you'd see him at a restaurant.
Johnny.
There was still a certain aura about them on the sideline, And again, it just because we're used to it doesn't mean it's the only way to do things. And Danny Grace is in the chat said, how well did the Mac and Eric Woods hype video go over? Got to watch yourself in that corny stuff. That's something completely different. Yeah. That's not somebody going out there and giving donuts out to students waiting in line, to get season tickets or whatever. Yeah. That was nonsense. It was pretty funny, but also not something planned or amongst like even inside the lines. That's not what we're talking about. That
wasn't made for public consumption. Like they
clearly even though it got consumed publicly.
That got put out and they probably weren't happy about that. Like that wasn't the goal.
Oh, I know they were not happy.
Okay. Here's the aspect that I want to know from you all, because I'm fluctuating on how I view this personally. We know how Kenny Payne did it, and we know everything he did wrong when it came to how he went about the rivalry. How do you want him to approach the rivalry? Because I'll be honest. Right now, me as a Louisville fan, as important as it was, it's taken a bit of a back burner of just win games. Like that's where it is for me right now. But like, how if you're Joe Blow Louisville fan. Like, what do you want to see him do? Do you want him to do Chris Mack and that kind of stuff, or do you want to do? How do you want him to approach the rivalry?
I want him to say John Calipari can suck my dick, like right there at the podium. No, I'm kidding. I don't. Sorry,
hey, Matthews PD, chill.
I don't. Well, I honestly don't care about his approach. I better believe it. Like whatever he says, it better be exactly how he feels, because I don't think that there's one proper approach. If you are a coach that gets wound up fucking tighter than you can stand it for a rivalry game, then be that way. And if you're one who thinks like the best way to show that I don't give a shit about you is by acting like I don't give a shit about you, then be that way. But be that. No fake juice. I think what Danny is saying in the comments about kind of the corniness and stuff, I think he's right. I think most fans, for the basketball coach, want him to save that energy for the freaking games. That's me.
No, and that's true, because the thing is, that's how Cal's going to look at him. Like Cal's gonna treat him like the little brother, the corny cousin, the whoever. Like Cal, that's how Cal's gonna.
I hope Cal calls him like Trevor Kelsey or Travis.
Yeah,
Kelsey.
like he's gonna he's gonna do something. He's gonna be like, what's the guy's name that Louisville hired? What's his name? Like he's gonna put
some little head
like
pat right there. Yeah,
yeah, like he exactly
the little guy. Yeah,
like
little
exactly. Like, yeah, he's gonna do him like that. Like that's the energy because you can already feel that energy from that side. And Cal's gonna, I mean, no matter how much on the hot seat he really is at UK, like he's still going to do this guy like that. He's not gonna show him any respect in this game coming up. And so therefore, like the rah-rah stuff, I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's okay, and it's going to go well as long as you're winning. But like you said, as long as I believe, however you feel, like pick a side and stay on that side, and be that way all the way through, and that's all I would want.
Yeah, and I look back and I think that's one of my chief. That's like I have one feeling about Chris Mack now, and it's I'm mad at him for bailing out on being Chris Mack. Like I think he lost his nerve, and he really should still be the coach here. He should have stuck to his guns and told us to kiss off. This is going to work. Just relax. He should have done that. And
he had more leverage. He had more leverage than I think he realized he had.
I agree.
Like, that's something. Yeah.
Yeah, he was spooked, and I think the minute that he wavered, the players gave up on him.
Absolutely.
The minute, and I'm really pissed that we're having to basically hire his tiny replacement because it should have worked. It should have worked.
But here's the thing, like I don't disagree with you, but like when we're talking about the corny stuff, like I go back to what you just said a few minutes ago, Mark. Like you hired him to be him, and I don't think when I look at the videos of him and I listen to people talk about him, I think it would be fake of him to try to like just wear suits and stand on the sideline and be Jay Wright. You know what I mean? Like that's not him. And I'm not saying that Louisville fans need you to do these things, but like you said, they need him to be himself. And I think they will eat that shit up as long as because I don't think all the stuff he does is corny. I just think he is who he is. I think some of it's corny, but like it's fine. We'll see how it plays here. We'll see how it works at Louisville. But I think after 2 years of having a crash test dummy on the sideline, I think everybody's going to be fine with a little bit of animation and somebody who's into the fan outreach and wants to do Louisville Live. I'm not saying he has to be, hey, like all the fucking time. I'm just saying like he's gonna be him, and I appreciate that, especially after having I don't know. Do I have another term?
You don't have to be the Kool-Aid man, Dave. You don't have to be the Kool-Aid man. Come in, busting through walls.
Oh yeah.
Hey. Or Fat Albert. You don't have to be Fat Albert.
Yeah. I got no less than floor is Archie Miller. Ceiling, he's like PRP Ted Lasso is like essentially what my text messages have been like today. It's like yeah, I do too, right? I was like that was creative from the group chat today. That
PRP Ted Lasso.
It's pretty good.
It's crazy, but I like it.
Wonderful. Yeah, put that show on KET. I would watch that.
So look, I mean,
I'm trying to think of a better way of saying that, but I can't.
Yeah, Shively, West Butyl. I don't know. I mean,
Fairdale Ted Lasso.
Yeah. So, but hopefully this is, and we talked about this in the past last year. It's like, oh, you got these energy vampires, and I think we're all came in agreement that the coaching staff were in fact the energy vampires. But if his personality is contagious, and what you see on some of these social media things and TikToks, like, and that spreads to the culture that he's trying to create here, when you hear the words like the program needed a jolt, the guy kind of feels like he can provide something. I don't know, like the ceiling is that national championship Final Four. I don't know, but it feels like he is at least going to change some sort of culture within the team and not have these sulking of constantly hearing broken. That's actually something that tomorrow I want to hear. I don't want to hear anything about the program.
Oh, I said that earlier, dude. I said the last thing I want to hear from him is are the issues with the program. Nobody wants to hear anybody's broken and that you need all this help. And it's like, dude, no, you got hired to come in and take advantage of all these wonderful amenities and this awesome structure. And if you can't win here, man, then maybe you should be in a different profession. Like, I know it's like I need him to come in here and appreciate everything he's got and tell us how he's gonna win in year one. And Danny, I 100% agree that if it's a Butch Jones act, so I don't think it's the same thing. Obviously, if you're 500 in your first year, whatever he does is going to be annoying. But if he comes in here with like champions of life or leadership reps or anything like that, that's a whole different animal. I don't think that's what we're talking about here, man.
No.
But I understand trepidation.
And to that point, a lot of people would always say who fits the Louisville job, and the name that kept coming up, even though it wasn't realistic about getting, was Bruce Pearl. Well, this is kind of like the Bruce Pearl thing. Like, this is the Bruce Pearl mold. The Bruce Pearl was in the student section at Tennessee, painted orange, and at Auburn, painted burnt orange. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that you would expect. Like, now Bruce Pearl's a lot older than Pat Kelsey. So, I mean, maybe 20 years Bruce Pearl was more like Pat Kelsey. Like, that's not to say that they aren't more in similar of that mold, because what I was thinking was, who is a guy at the highest level that is competing at the highest level that kind of gives this energy, this kind of energy. And the first name I thought of was Bruce Pearl, and that was a name a lot of people would say, man, he would do well here. Well, that's not. Pat Kelsey has a lot to do to become the status that is Bruce Pearl, but he is in that same mold, and that's the type of stuff people here I think will eat up.
Yeah, I think it's important to state again, because I think we've all said it one way or another. It's important not to conflate. I don't think he's going to win us national championships with they're going to be as bad as they've been the last 3 years next year under him. I think we all feel some level of confidence. He might not be a national championship caliber guy. It might be Kevin Keatsy at times, but that they're going to be at a magnitudes better next year and on a regular basis. Like, it's important to understand, like, you might have your questions about Pat Kelsey, but he's a very good coach who never fields bad teams. Never. And so we're going to be swimming in a lot higher waters. And it will never be more welcome. You just got to put a roster together.
And to that point, to the roster thing, I want to ask you guys this. When it comes to NIL, right? Like, you always hear people say, like, oh, Louisville has all this NIL money. But a lot of schools have NIL money. Like, everybody is competing for the same transfers. Everybody is competing for the same high school top talent. Like, how much do you gauge NIL? Like, are you guys of the among the beliefs that, hey, just get any kind of body, give them a low, if a guy can coach, get a low salary and just load up the NIL and you can be able to field an amazing team? Or are you still among the say, like, hey, we got to get a good coach, and even if you don't get the top of the line prospects, if you get good players, whether no matter how much you're spending NIL, you can have a really good team. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on, like, the NIL thing and buying players and people referring to it as salary caps and all kinds of stuff?
It's so difficult for me to place because we just had somebody who completely fumbled like the entire NIL structure, like, and tried and actually using that as the head coach of Louisville's basketball program. So, but then we look at what Jeff Brom was able to do. And a lot of those key pieces he was able to get in and being able to kind of flip this team. And I understand it's not, it's not comparable to compare Scott Satterfield football and Kenny Payne basketball. But at the same time, to go in and get some of those key pieces of guys you needed to go out there and win 10 damn games at the beginning, yes, it's a bit frustrating the way that the season ended. But year one, get it rolling, get it going. I have a feeling that, like, to me, I need to see, week one, how's Pat Kelsey going to operate and use this? Is he going to throw the bag around a little bit and get some, big time key pieces? Or is he just going to kind of, like, find what I when I say this, I don't want to put it like it's a bad thing, but like sometimes a guy will be like, it's just a guy who will work in my system. Sometimes the guy who will work in your system is fine, but is he going to be a talent level that I need to be competitive in the ACC? Does that make sense? Like if he's going to use that money at that level, or if you're just going to end up, I want to see what he does with the money. I guess is what I'm saying, because we have
The
no
NIL
real concept with the coach we had.
NIL for NIL's sake is not always great. I mean, Eric Musselman's a great coach. He's had a lot of postseason success, and he just constructed a ridiculous roster this year that didn't really work together. And just when you thought he was done signing point guards, he signed another one. Sometimes just having the money isn't enough. I mean, obviously, I want a coach who can do both. And I don't know if that's an answer for you or not, but like I need somebody who obviously is a good X's and O's coach, but can also understand how to deploy that NIL in such a fashion that isn't just getting the five shiniest objects, but figuring out how that NIL fits in, how these transfers fit in with your system, which is one of the things that I love so much about Jerome Tang. I've said it a million times, is that he took a completely depleted roster, rebuilt it with transfers that weren't necessarily the highest rated transfers, made an Elite Eight. In year one, somebody who understood what he was looking at and evaluated talent very well and how those pieces would fit together. And that's what you need. Like, you're going to have somebody who maybe he sees a lot of potential with a couple of the guys that are on the fence about Louisville in the portal, and he definitely uses some of that money to keep a Brandon Huntley Hatfield or a Sky Clark or Tyler Johnson, one or two pieces that want to stick around. And then maybe he brings in the sharpshooter from Charleston. He doesn't bring in 3 or 4 guys from his low major, but he brings in a guy who can shoot the lights out, or his big who can pass the ball a little bit. Guys that he knows can fit into that rotation. They're not a wasted spot, but you don't want to bring in 5 or 6 guys from your low major. That's not how that works. And then he goes out and he finds 2 or 3 really talented guys he can fit his system. And then he uses the rest of it to maybe pluck a few more guys that are a little deeper down the line, but are sharpshooters or defensive specialists, or shot blockers or whoever he needs, in that system. It's a matter of being a GM and a coach all rolled up into one. And it's not easy, but that's what the money's for, right, Mark?
And you touched on it better than I said. That's what I just real quick. Just all I wanted to say was that touched on it better. I think what I wanted to say is, I guess what I want to know is, does Pat Kelsey have the personality and the ability to compete for top tier talent? Is he going to be able to compete with the best of them?
We'll find out.
Yeah. I think the good news is, I think he has shown over a long period of time good roster building skills at places where you got to be pretty resourceful, and has coached as an assistant more, but has coached like NBA guys, Chris Paul and all that whole group that went through Wake Forest. He was a big part of all of that. So I think he's got experience with this stuff in different ways. Now it's all kind of in one. But I don't worry about that. I think a deft use of the NIL money and maybe an opportunity for him to show his recruiting skill and help the team. Like, I think he needs to win one really like high profile Damian Lee type transfer guy. Like, he needs to get one, and then bring. I agree with Dave. You bring in maybe 3 or 4 people that come from Charleston. I think you welcome Tyler and Okorafor to stay, and like a max win for everybody. Get Caleb Glenn to come back because he's a local. Win a high profile recruiting battle for, in particular, I think really a playmaker guy.
Win your Tyrese Hunter. Win that one this year.
Yeah. Get Caleb Glenn to come back, and then ask people to trust your evaluation skills on some guys that maybe aren't the number one guys, but fill out a good deep roster that will listen to you from year one. And I think he'll be good to go.
Yeah, when Jeff Borzello or John Fantha or Mark Ennis puts out the top transfer portals players, I want Louisville to be swimming in those waters of like the top 10, top 15 guys, and their name appears up there. And it's like, okay, he's cultivating relationships. He's starting to hit the ground running, and they're not going to win them all, but I want them to be in a top 15, top 20 scenario where they do land some of those big names in the transfer portal, and they're able to get some of these in the treasure chest of NIL that we've been told. And by all accounts, the 502 circle and the collective out there, now that we're in an understanding when we talk about being manageable and having Josh Hurd and the 502 collective saying, okay, we didn't do the things that we said we were going to do with KP. We're doing it this way now. And if there is this treasure chest, they are going to operate in this space in which you're going to get the top talent, or money's not going to be an issue. And that's where I want him to really get some wins early on, to where some folks are understanding it's like, okay, he can play with the big boys in the world, and they may not land them all, but he'll be able to be up there with, the Hunter Dickinsons of the world this year in the final 3 or 4. Like Louisville should be up there with that.
And Justin, you hold on, Jeff, and then I'll let you answer this question.
Yeah.
I think it's important. Like sometimes I catch a whiff of from a question like yours and others, where it almost makes it sound like you're saying, like, can he get top level talent? And sometimes it feels like we're asking, like, has he really been kind of doing the Louisville job already, or where he was before? Like, how is he supposed to show the Louisville stuff at Charleston? You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to allow for some projecting.
And that's fair. It's just, to me, again, that's why I brought up the point about it being such a big gamble. Because sometimes guys can't. Sometimes it doesn't transfer over, and they think you step up, you're going to be able to step up. You're stepping up in station, so obviously you're going to step up in recruits. And sometimes it's just like, oh no, I'm still kind of stuck in that water. And that's
well, and why Satterfield did that. Satterfield did that, right? Like, it took him 3 years to figure out, like, recruiting my good old boys isn't working. Like, that's fair. But I think Kelsey is where he's different from Satterfield. Satterfield literally had just stayed in that cocoon.
The lifer. He was a lifer. Yeah. Yes.
His entire career, he never left that tree at all until he came here. And Pat Kelsey, not that. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, and to that point, like we talked about that on your show earlier, Mark, just like he's not a small school lifer. There's nothing wrong with that, but he knows what it's like, to Mark's point, to recruit NBA players, the Jeff Teagues, the Al-Farouq Aminos, the Ish Smiths. Like, these are guys that is well documented that he was their lead recruiter. And to that point, like, I think recruiting, part of it is transactional. Yeah, NIL plays a part, but I think relationship building still means something. Like, there's still kids that are choosing less NIL money and going to play for a coach that they have a better relationship with, or going to play for a coach that they feel like can get them to the next level. Like, that's the only thing I don't like about what the NIL talk is, like, that all recruiting, none of it is relationship building. No. Yeah, it is part transactional. You can even say most of it is transactional. But that relationship part still matters. Like, because you know why it matters? Because guess what? If it didn't matter, and if it doesn't matter, if it's all transactional, what do those kids do after 1 year? They hit the portal. They hit the portal. They literally leave, and they go on and they move on. Even though they had a good time, they look like they were scoring a bunch of points. Their coach hasn't left. The philosophy is still there. But if it's all transactional, it's like, it was cool, but I think I can go find a bigger bag somewhere else.
Yep.
It's different for every kid still. I mean, the money is a big piece of everybody's. I mean, no one's just not going to ask about the money. Not when it's there. Nobody's going to go play for free when there's $750,000 waiting for them somewhere else. But it's not everything, like you said, and you still have to like people, just like people don't only go take jobs for money. There's other considerations, your professional development, your relationship, the working environment, all those things that you balance in your own life are the same things that a lot of these kids are looking at. Who's going to get me ready for the NBA? Who do I like working with? What environment or infrastructure is going to be the best for my my professional development. And then you combine that with the money might be the tiebreaker or the money might be the conversation starter, but the rest of that still matters. And hopefully it looks like and it sounds like he thrives in those things. And I was going to make the point when I was listening to you all when I walked away that Mark made, I think it was Mark, that Satterfield, the comparisons are just, Satterfield never left Boone, like you said. And our guy, Pat Kelsey, recruited to Wake Forest and recruited really well there. I think he understands the expectations of a Power 5 job and not just any Power 5 job. So hopefully he adjusts to that. I don't have the same type of reservations there. But you never know until you see it in action.
I'm curious.
My laptop is about to die. I'm sorry, guys. It could be any second. So if I go black, let you know what happened on there. Apologies.
I gotta hit the hay. I'm probably gonna. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will. We'll check back in after we hear from Coach Kelsey today at 3:00, fellas. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, you guys are incredible. 2,364 people on the stream.
Yep, we've had a ton of people in here. Let me go ahead real quick and let me just scroll through this thing. I'm just going to do – the only way I can do this right now is just literally I'm scrolling through the comments, and I'm just going to literally just let it spin. And whoever I land on, sorry, I guess that means somebody who commented more probably has a better chance of winning. But let me go ahead and do this giveaway so I'm not –
Is it going to be that sore-ass Vegas guy?
It might be. He might be. It's a good chance. Let's see. All right, let's just see where it ends. Looks like the guy looks like the guy that we got the winner is Danny Grace. So Danny Grace,
there
you were the winner of the giveaway for this this thing. I saw you commenting a lot, but that's where it landed. Reach out to me, and then we'll figure out that. We'll make sure you get that, either the jersey or whatever it is you Ville.
We see him on Twitter. He's a good presence. He had some good stuff to say in the comments. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, thanks so much, everybody, for hopping on, and Mark for reaching out and trying to get this thing together. Appreciate it. These are always fun to do, and I'm glad. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a lot more of these, especially when I'm back in Louisville, and hopefully, my internet will be much better than what we had here. If you haven't already, guys, do me a favor. Smash the like button. Go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're tuned in there. That's where we're going to have a lot of different other content that you won't see also on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. So
yeah, we love you too, Vegas.
That'll do it for me. Anybody else have any comments? But otherwise, I'll just let it wrap it up, and we will get out of here now. So
appreciate it, boys.
Y'all have a good night, man. It's been a long day.
See you guys.
See you, man.
Take care. See y'all tomorrow.